All right, good evening, everybody. Hope you are having a great quarantine or whatever you're doing. Isolation. This is the isolation edition of How to Become a Stock Market Day Trader. I'm Tyler Ballhorns, founder of Stockscores.com, and I will talk tonight for 45 minutes to an hour about the joys of day trading, which is one of the few things that is actually better during a pandemic because we work from home and the market is very volatile, so there's lots of trading action. It really is kind of the best thing to be doing right now, but we'll get into that a little bit later. All right, so what is day trading? What is swing trading? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. This is one of the stocks that we traded today. I personally did not trade this, but many of my students who are in my active live service did trade this stock today. It was a big money maker. You can see that it, just gotta get my mouse in the right place here. You can see that it started the day down here at around $10, finished the day at 13, a big run higher. What I'm going to do tonight is explain all the points of entry, explain what all these lines mean, what do these lines mean, what do these pink dots mean, where were the entry signals, where were the exit signals. We will go through this as our prime example because it's a timely one. It's one that came up today. But lately there's been lots of stocks like this because the markets are so volatile. So it's really one of the best times for trading that I've seen in 30 years. So the itinerary for this evening, I'll first explain what is day trading. I'll also touch a little bit on what is swing trading. Tell you my story, how I came to be a trader. I'll talk about my approach, how I measure performance, sort of walk you through the different things that I do in my trading day. What you need if you want to be a day trader, the things that will help you succeed. For those of you that want to learn my approach, I'll tell you how you can do that. And then at the end, we will talk a little bit about the income potential for day trading and that sort of thing. All right. What is day trading? We enter and exit positions within a trading day, very simply. You're out of your positions before the end of the day. So you might buy at 10 o'clock in the morning and sell at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. As long as you exit your positions before the close, I consider that to be a day trade. When you hold stocks overnight, but not for longer than perhaps 2 weeks, then we call that swing trading. And so there's lots of great swing trading opportunities in the market right now as well. You can buy and then 3-4 days later sell it. That would be a swing trade. When you hold longer than 2 weeks, but perhaps less than 2 months, we call that position trading. And that was the subject of Tuesday's webinar, which is available in video form on the Stockscores YouTube channel. So when we're day trading, we're focusing on stocks that are moving abnormally and are actively traded. We want those liquid stocks, things that are doing lots of crazy stuff and are, breaking through resistance levels, trading very strong volume, like that stock that I showed you just a moment ago. Now we can buy, we can sell short. What is selling short? That is how we make money from a stock going lower. And most of the time we buy. Most of the time it's the most profitable way to trade, but there are times when short selling is very profitable. And of course, the month of March had lots of that as the market made that huge correction. But generally speaking, markets tend to go up over time. And so that's why generally buying is easier. We only short sell when there's a little bit of a market correction. So this is my office, a little messy, but I took this afternoon. And you can see lots of screens and things like that. And I work from home. You don't have to have all these screens to start out. Remember that I'm not only trading myself, but I'm also helping others with the active live service that I run. So I need a little bit more hardware than most people do. But that's your overhead. That's your office space. And we do that, or we use that because it gives us the ability to watch lots of markets. I can day trade from my laptop computer. It's just a little bit more work because you got to flip in and out of different screens. So a little bit about my story. how did I get started trading? I started trading when I was 19 years old. I was a student at the University of Calgary in the business program, and I was looking to basically get my way into business school. I thought I needed to know something about the market in order to get into business school. And so I started that way. And I mostly traded on stock tips. I would primarily play penny stocks because I didn't have a lot of money to work with. I started with $3,000, some of which I borrowed from my credit card. My very first trade I lost on. And it didn't dissuade me. I loved the idea of making a living from home, buying and selling stocks. When I started trading, we didn't really have the internet, at least not like it is today. So I used to actually phone into a broker and make my orders. I would hang out at the Alberta Stock Exchange. I lived in Calgary, Canada. And we had a stock exchange there. And outside the trading floor, they had some real-time quote terminals where I could buy and sell in, not buy and sell, but I could analyze and get real-time price information from those real-time terminals. Now, those terminals back then cost $600 or $700 a month. This was 30 years ago. And, I couldn't afford that. So I would just hang out there and I could use their real-time quotes. And then I would run over to a payphone and make my orders. Sometimes I would rip home and look at charts to figure out which ones had the best patterns and that sort of thing. But that's sort of how I started. And obviously, it's a lot slower process than we have today, but there was also a lot less competition back then. So it's all relative. The fact that I was getting real-time quotes was what gave me an advantage over most people in the market, because most people didn't have real-time quotes back then. Nowadays, I have other advantages. I have indicators and algorithms that give me an advantage and my students an advantage over other people. So why do I like to trade? Well, the flexibility is great. You can do it really from anywhere. I have lived in Maui, Hawaii. I've lived in Whistler. I'm an avid mountain biker, so I've spent some time living there. I work from home, and as long as I can plug into a wall, I'm good to go. I find it fun. I mean, maybe it's not for everyone, but I love it. It's a great challenge. You're having to think and compete against other smart people and try to beat them. It's like a game to me. The freedom is great. If I don't feel like working some days, I just don't, because I don't make any money, but I don't have to do it every day. If I want to go on a vacation, there's no boss, I guess. And then, of course, the financial capacity is great as well. You can make a lot of money trading, provided you know what you're doing. What I'm going to do tonight is try to teach you some of those things so that you know what you are doing. Okay, my approach. So I don't approach the market the way most people do. I don't trade on stock tips. I don't study what companies do. I don't read news releases. I simply use math, basically, simple math. I have strategies that are based on algorithms that look for abnormal behavior in the market. Human beings, when it comes to their money, we're all idiots because we have an emotional attachment to money. So I try to take out the emotional element, minimize human judgment by letting a computer do a lot of the work. And my trades are based on rules which are not based in emotion. Now, those algorithms and the processes, I'll show you some of that tonight, but those are the result of 30 years of experience and 3 years, almost 4 years of development of the algorithm. And it's call it my life's work. I started it, learning about this stuff. I taught myself. I don't read books about the market. Everything is self-taught. I've written a couple of books about the market, and we'll go into some of that stuff later. So one of the things that we need to understand before I get into some of the meat of this presentation is how I measure performance. And the thing that we'll talk about a lot tonight, and if you watch my other videos, is something called the reward for risk ratio. Now, the reward for risk ratio is a very excellent way to measure performance. And essentially it works like this. If I've got a stock that's sort of trading like this, and then it jumps up and I have a buy signal. And let's say this candle, which is this bar that we use, and I'll talk about that in a moment, let's say that bar closes at $10 and the low of that bar is $9.80. The difference between those two numbers is what I call risk. Now, it's not actually the amount of risk we take, because we may lose a multiple of that number, but for simplicity, we're going to use that range of that candle, which we call an action candle. We call this an action candle. It's what makes us take the trade in the right circumstance. So that action candle has a range of 20 cents, and so the risk of that trade is 20 cents. Now, again, we don't necessarily take a loss at 980. This is how we measure risk. We might take a loss at 3 times risk, or what we call minus 3 RR. And if the trade works, we might sell it at plus 10 RR. It's just a way to measure performance. So we measure the quality of our profits in RR, but also the size of our losses in RR. So I could have a minus 2 loss, I could have a plus 8 loss, but it's always based on the entry signal point and the distance down to the low of that candle. This will make a little bit more sense when we look at a chart. So our number one goal is to preserve capital. Now, most would say, oh, your number one goal should be to make money. It's kind of the number two goal. The number one goal is to not lose our money. We are trying to preserve our capital. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't suffer losses from time to time. I lose just about every day on some trades. But it's the size of the losses that is important. If you have a lot of big losses, then you really ruin your longer term performance. And so what we want to do is have small losses when we have to lose and have bigger gains when we make money, and then try to be right more than we are wrong. So that is how we can be successful in trading. If anyone comes into trading expecting that they will not make losses on some of their trades, I would advise them to quit and to go put your money under the mattress, because in order to make a reward, you have to take a risk, and taking a risk requires that you will lose some of the time. But think about it this way. If 70% of the time I can make 2 RR, so 2 times my risk, and 30% of the time I lose 1 RR, what happens after I do 10 trades? Well, after 10 trades, that would be 7 times I make an average of 2, so I'd make 14 RR. And 3 times I would lose 1, so I'd have minus 3. So after 10 trades, I'm up 11 RR. Now we'll get a little bit more into this RR thing and reward for risk in a moment. It makes a lot more sense when I show you on a chart, but essentially, if I was risking $100 per trade in this scenario, after 10 trades, I would be making $1,100. All right, and again, I'll explain that in a little more detail in a moment. So here is that chart of a stock that triggered my entry signal this morning, and it did so right here. It was 6 minutes after the market opened. This chart is a 2-minute chart. This is today's trading, April 16th. This is April 15th over on this side. Oops. All right. And it made a big gain. It finished the day at plus 23. So that means for every $100 of risk, it made $2,300 of profit. That's pretty awesome. Now I'm just going to check something here. I've got another screen. You probably hear my voice fall away a little bit. Okay, so in order to take $100 of risk on this trade required buying 760 shares. You can see that's actually showing there on the chart. And that's because my strategy is completely automated. It's programmed into this program that produces the chart. It's called TradeStation. And so the algorithm calculates that to take $100 of risk required 760 shares at a price of, it's really hard to see, but it looks like about $10.29. I think $10.29, I believe. Anyway, the total position was $7,820. However, when you day trade, your broker, if you have the right kind of broker, they will allow you to only put up 1/3 of the capital, and they'll put up the other 2/3. It's called margin. It allows you to leverage the trade. So you could margin this stock 3 to 1, which means take this number and divide it by 3, and that is, what is that, about $2,600 of capital to take $100 of risk. And if you held through to the end of the day, which is debatable whether you would do that, we'll talk about that later, at the end of the day, you're up plus 23 or $2,300. So that means you made a $2,300 profit before commissions on $2,600 of capital. So almost 100%, not quite, maybe 95% return in one day. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit more about the economics of trading later. This is a little bit of a hint about that, but what these lines are here on this chart are our risk reward lines. You can see that each one is a multiple of the height of the original entry candle when that trade was triggered, and we know it was triggered because there's a little pink dot there. It's called my action candle indicator. We'll talk about that again in a moment. So how does my trading day look? Well, before the market opens, I do a little pre-market assessment and plan. I look at the S&P 500, how it's doing in the pre-market session. I look at the trend of the market. I look at where the market is going to open based on where it's trading in the pre-market, and then I devise my plan. So, for example, today, the market opened up. It's been in sort of a sideways, choppy pattern over the last 4 or 5 days. Kind of boring, to be honest, the last 4 or 5 days. But it's still got a bit of an upward bias. So we had a slight upward trend. We were down yesterday. We were moving. We're going to open up today. And so my expectation was the market would probably rally up to a certain resistance level, get stuck, roll over, go down, stop going down at support, and then move back up. And I felt like it was going to be kind of a sideways, choppy day, but we could buy stocks at the open if they had characteristics of alpha. What are the characteristics of alpha? They are stocks that are trading with abnormal volume and abnormal price activity, like this one. What you can see here is that this stock was trading more volume to start the day than it had been the previous day, and the price gain was significant. It had closed yesterday at $9.50. It opened this morning at a little over $10, and so it had the characteristics of alpha. And when I say alpha, that's what I like to trade. I like to trade what I call alpha stocks. It's kind of like the alpha dog, the leader of the pack. These are the stocks that lead the pack. And every day there's, 50 to 100 of them. Some days less, some days more. But we want alpha stocks. We want those stocks that are leading the pack, leading the market to the upside. All right. So I am a strategy-based trader. I have a number of different strategies that I teach, that I do myself. You can't do all of these realistically. I primarily focus on day trading strategies, which would be these two. Many of my students right now are focusing on this crash reversal pattern, which I've talked a lot about in my videos lately. Ways to take advantage of the big sell-off in the overall market. It's working nicely. Some people are swing traders where they don't want to work all day long. Maybe they want to look at the market for the opening hour. We get lots of good swing trade entries in the opening hour. And then for those who want to focus on trading in the last hour, we do something called action breaks, which we didn't really do much of in March, but in a normal market condition, we do every day. And we'll start doing those again soon because the market's stabilizing. And so there is a strategy for your time availability, your interest, that sort of thing. As I said, not everybody wants to day trade. Not everyone wants to day trade all day. And so we have ways to do these strategies just for the opening hour or do it all day. It's really up to you. Lots of flexibility. But what we want to do ultimately is minimize human judgment. We do not want to rely on our emotional thinking because we humans make silly mistakes in the market because we have an emotional attachment to money. So all of my strategies are based on rules, and those rules are based in math. There is no real opinion. There are some judgment calls that we have to make based on the pattern that we see in the chart, but for the most part, the initial trade signals are based on math. So if we go back to CODX, the reason I liked it this morning, or the reason it met our rules, is it was trading very quietly yesterday. This is yesterday's trading range going into the close, and you can see that nobody really cared about the stock. But then today, it started to trade volume. This is the volume down here. So it started to trade more volume. It really perked up, came alive. My algorithm found the entry candle on the third bar of the day. There's a little pink dot there. We call that the action candle. And that's what triggers all of our trades, both long and short. And in this case, it was a buy trade. The algorithm calculates the number of shares. As you can see, it says 760 there. And then it's a matter of when we sell it, and we'll talk about that. I may as well talk about that now quickly. So we can do this, we can do this a few different ways. Let me just, I wrecked something here, hold on a second. Okay, I'm back. So one of the things that we're doing right now, because the market is so volatile, is we do what I call a Steve Miller trade. And you've probably heard me talk about this before, but a Steve Miller trade is when we go on and take the money and run. The first sign of a breakdown, we'll jump ship and get out, as provided the stock goes up quickly. So this stock went up very quickly. It went up all the way up to as much as 10 RR within the first 45 minutes of the trading day. And then it broke its little upward trend line right there. So that would be a good aggressive exit. Now, again, in a normal market, I wouldn't probably sell there. But in this market, it's a good place to take the money and run. You make 6 times your risk. So for every $100, you make $600. So that would be the first run at that stock. And that was done before 10:30 Eastern. Now I'm fine with buying a stock again later. Like you can sell a stock and buy it back later. That's no problem. So when would we do that? Well, the next thing we look for is a break of the pullback from a rising bottom. So that happened right here. So there's a pullback there. You can see there's a rising bottom. We talked about that in my last webinar. But essentially, you can see this little bottom plus sign has got a little bit higher one right beside it. So that's another part of my algorithm that looks for rising bottoms. Breaks the downward trend line there, so you buy it back, and then you get to enjoy this move. There was one other entry on the stock, and it's for another strategy called the superhero. Because this stock was trading very abnormal volume today, we can apply the rules of the superhero, and we look for action candles breaking from predictive patterns. I can teach you all the predictive patterns you need to know. There's about a dozen of them, but the most common is one called an ascending triangle. And there was a breakout from an ascending triangle right there with increased volume, and that telegraphed the next move up, where the stock moved from 1175 to 1350 or so over the next hour or two, hour and a half. All right, so there's actually 3 trades in this stock today. Now, some people in my active live service decided that they were going to swing trade this stock, which means they bought into it with the idea that they would hold it for a few days. So they still buy at essentially the same place down here, but they actually hold it all day long because they have a longer term view. And in this case, it really paid off because they could be up 23 times risk at the close. All right, so that's a little teaser into day trading. Let's talk a little bit about swing trading. And I've talked in some of my recent videos on the Stockscores YouTube channel, which everyone should subscribe to now. Go to YouTube now or later and click on the subscribe button. Just search YouTube for Stockscores, subscribe, click on the little notifications bell so you get an email when I upload a new video. You hear me say that a lot. The pattern here is one where there is a downward trend line, and it goes back farther because this is JW Nordstrom. It sold off fairly strong over the previous days and weeks. And then it built a rising bottom right there, and it broke the downward trend line on April 6th. So it broke its downward trend line from a rising bottom. That is my crash reversal pattern. We apply that pattern to the 13-minute chart. We can apply it to the 30-minute chart, the daily chart. Depends on what your time frame that you want to trade is. If you're a swing trader that wants to be fairly active, you would look at this 13-minute chart. If you want to be less active, then you would look at the 30-minute or the daily chart. All right, so our buy point is here. Our risk reward lines look like this. And we get a nice run higher over the following, 4 days? And I can draw a trend line like this. And we see that it broke the trend line right there, which gave us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times our risk. So our risk reward ratio was 5, which means for every $100 of risk, we made $500 of profit. If you took $1,000 of risk, then this trade made $5,000 of profit. Now that's before slippage and before commissions, but it only drops it a little bit. All right, so that's swing trading. That's the crash reversal pattern. And we can take any of the signals that we get in the active live algorithm service. You can apply them for day trading, but you can also just use them for swing trading as well if you don't want to be that active. And one more longer term trade, we have a strategy called action breaks, where we look for a message candle, which we see right there, in a downward trend. And when the message candle breaks the downward trend, we can buy it with our support at the low there. And this is for snap. This is on a daily interval. It gave a buy signal around the 3rd week of March, and it moved up nicely. All right. So those are 3 different strategies. We had the day trader strategy, actually 4 different strategies. We had the day trader strategy. We then had the superhero strategy, which is another day trading strategy. We had the simple swings. We had the crash reversal pattern on the last one, and this one we have the action breaks. So that's actually 5. Geez, I did it again. Sorry, something's a little bit screwy here. I'm on multiple screens and it's messing me up a little. Sorry about that. Okay. So what do you need to know to be able to do this? Well, obviously you need knowledge. You need to learn some core skills. Basics of the stock market, what the stock market is based on, what is a buy order, a sell order, stop loss order, market order, limit order. I teach you all that stuff if you want to take one of my classes. Then you need to do the analysis. So I use algorithms for my analysis, my message candles, my trend line indicators, my rising bottom, falling top stuff. Those are all built into my algorithm. You need to have risk management techniques. So I've showed you a little bit about that tonight. Money management, which is how big of a position you take. And so if your risk tolerance is $100, that determines how many shares you buy. We went through the math of that already. We have to develop strategies based on our analysis. That's my favorite part of trading. I love developing strategies, and I have developed strategies that I sell to other people. If you want to buy access to my strategies, I'll show you how to do that later, or you can develop them yourself. It's fun. It takes a lot of work though. I've spent some of my strategy, I've spent years developing, a lot of trial and error. You lose a lot of money testing strategies, so it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but if you like analysis, it's quite fun. And then the actual mechanics of doing the trading, doing the analysis, because you can have the greatest strategy in the world, but if you can't find the opportunities in a timely way, then it's all just kind of academic. And so we need to have processes and tools and things like that to be able to capitalize on the strategy itself. And so that's also a big part of what I teach. And I also provide all the tools through the different products that we have at Stockscores. So what do you need? When you talk about strategies, they should include the rules for when to enter, when to exit, how to size your positions and manage your risk. Strategies should be well tested. You should test them over a large number of trades, over many different market conditions. Testing a strategy and finding it works over the last 10 trades doesn't mean that it will work in all market conditions. You should really understand what's behind them, and you should test them using data. So that's a big part of what I do, is I have these big spreadsheets. This is a little something I've taken out of my analysis spreadsheet. I'll actually show you this spreadsheet. I've got it open on my other screen. Just give me a second here. I'll just slide it down. So this is my analysis spreadsheet, and the way it works is every stock, every action candle that's ever triggered since this particular one goes back to July, every action candle here is included. So there are, on the buy side, you see this long tab, which was what we're on right now. Since July, there have been 51,000 action candles. All right. And we take all of that data and we put it into this big spreadsheet so we can analyze it. So there's other data going over this way. It calculates the reward for risk of the trade, the maximum reward for the risk of the trade, what the drawdown was, how much did it go down after the entry signal, how much capital was required so that we can figure out percentage returns. So it's all captured here. And then it's summarized in this tab. And by the way, we do short sells as well. So there's also almost 50,000 short sell signals in this sheet. And then we can summarize the statistics. So yesterday, I'll just show you how to read this, on the long side. So we're on the long side here. This is the short side over here. We'll focus on the long for now. Between 12:30 and 1 o'clock yesterday, there were 4 buy signals. They averaged an RR of 4.6 each for a total RR of 18.46. But the actual maximum RR, maximum reward for risk, was 7.5. So in other words, there was 4 really good trades in there between 12:30 and 1. Now, we determine whether we are taking trades or not based on something called market factor. I'll talk about that in a moment, but that's sort of what this spreadsheet does. So when I look at my results and things like that, it's not based on, anything less than data. It's just data, data, data. There is all kinds of data in this spreadsheet going back to July. I can manipulate it, I can optimize it, I can adjust different settings in this sheet to do different things. There's things in here that you probably don't understand. You have to take my courses to understand what all these things mean. But we can really manipulate data to calculate whether something is working or not. And that's how you develop a strategy. That's how you test a strategy, but that's also how you track your performance so you can optimize your strategy to get the very most out of it. So that's what these are all about. So next thing you need is tools. And if you want to be a longer term trader, you can use the market scanning tools at Stockscores. I talked about that in Tuesday's webinar. And if you want to go watch that webinar, it is on YouTube in the YouTube channel. I think it's called How to Be a Profitable Stock Investor or something like that. I use something called TradeStation, which is this program right here. And this program allows me to look at charts in real time. It allows me to do lots of testing. And it comes as a kind of a blank, it's almost like Excel. It comes as a blank screen, and you got to build all this stuff. And this is where I develop algorithms and test them and refine them and that sort of thing. Most of my students don't actually use TradeStation. Most of them use my service called Active Live, where you're watching my analysis screen. But some of my students are more technical, more computer literate perhaps, and so they want to get into using TradeStation. I think it's a great idea if you're into that, but it's a question of whether it's right for you. All right, then we have our order entry platform, which is our brokerage system where we buy and sell. And whatever broker you use will have different types of order entry. Most brokers will have real-time charts, real-time prices. That's pretty important. If you're going to be an active trader, like a day trader, you really should have a software-based brokerage system as opposed to a website-based brokerage system. It's just because you got to be fast a lot of the time. If you're swing trading, if you're position trading, longer term trading, web-based is fine. But when day trading, you really want to be able to make fast orders at low cost. And so it's fairly critical that you do it that way. And then I like to do post-trade analytics. So I use Excel for that. You just saw that spreadsheet. I encourage my students to keep a trading journal, and you can use Excel or Word. Actually, you can use Excel for that as well, but use Microsoft Word. This is not something I do myself anymore, but I used to. I used to have a big book and I put all my trades into a binder and wrote notes on them and that sort of thing. So those are very helpful for learning especially. And then we have a service, which I'll show you in a moment, called Active Trader Live, where you can watch my screen and it spits out real-time alerts all day long. And so you don't have to learn how to use TradeStation. You get my commentary through the day. I guide you through the day. I try to teach a lesson every day so that after a month or two, you're really starting to understand my methodology and be able to capitalize on it. Next thing you need is process. You need a step-by-step plan for implementing this trading strategy. You know, I can tell you the rules for the strategy, but if you don't have a really good process for executing it, then you're going to have trouble making money off of it. So process is very important. It has to be very mechanical, efficient, fast. Well, for day trading, it has to be fast, not so much for longer term trading. And we really want to have a process that takes our emotional side out. Humans are terrible. We're really predisposed to fail in the stock market because we have a fear of losing, we have a fear of missing out, we feel greed, we have biases, we sort of tend to see what we want to see on the stocks that we own and ignore the negatives on the stocks that we own. So we have all these silly things that we do. There's lots of books written about some of those emotional biases, and we have to get rid of that if we're going to be successful. And so I'm as emotional as anyone else, probably less so now because I've done this a long time, but certainly through my trading career, I've always had to fight with being a human. And I just decided I'm not going to fight being a human. I'm just going to take the human out of it. And I do that by developing these mechanical processes that are all based in logic and not really where there's a lot of decision making to be made. So my process, typical process for day trading, is I determine the market factor. So what do I think the overall market is going to do? Do I think the market's going to move up, move down through the day? Sometimes, like today, it moved up and down a few times. It went down, up, like 3-4 cycles today. So we have to understand that. And if you were on my active live service today, you will know that I predicted the swings almost exactly. And I can teach you how to do that. It's actually not that hard. But, you know, the market ran up at a certain point this morning, and I said it's probably going to get stuck here and we should watch for a breakdown. And sure enough, within like 4 minutes, it stopped going up and started going down. I said, well, next leg should be down. We may go all the way to the lows. And if it does, it should bounce there. If it makes a rising bottom, then we're maybe going to get a breakout today. We never got that rising bottom. We ended up pulling back all the way to the lows of the day. And again, I came on the microphone and said, the market is at a place where it should bounce. It maybe feels hard to be a buyer down here because the market's been going down for an hour, but this is the right time to be a buyer. So that's market factor. So once we have our market factor, then we can watch the tools that we use for what we call action candles. And when we see an action candle, we look at the chart. You look for certain things on that chart that I teach you. And then we enter the trade, we do our risk management, we calculate our position size, all that kind of stuff, enter the trade, and then we just monitor those trades for exit signals. In most market conditions, we would just hold until the end of the day, most of the time. But in this market, we have to be more aggressive because we have such a wild and crazy market right now. And then as the day progresses, we might monitor for a change of the market factor. All of this stuff is automated with my Active Trader Live service. I'm going to show you that in just a moment. But I do all of the analysis for you. I tell you what I think the market's going to do. I'm not right all the time, but I'm pretty good. And I teach you through the day. It's the most powerful way to learn because it's real market trading every day. The first day, probably the first week, you're overwhelmed. You're like, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to do this. It's too fast. It's too much to understand. But you stick with it for a month and you start to say, okay, I understand his language now. I see these things. I see how it works over and over and over again. And that's the learning process. You know, you can make a lot of money in the market, but you can't expect to make it on the first day. It takes some time to learn. And of course, the other thing you need is capital. Remember, our number one goal is to preserve our capital. So we are always doing good risk management. As a general rule, if you take your risk tolerance amount, let's say your risk tolerance is $100, multiply that by 200, that will allow you to take enough trades to get close to the average profit of the strategy. Right now, the market is way more volatile than normal, so this number is much lower. It's probably 50 to 100 right now, which means to take $100 of risk in a day requires between $5,000 to $10,000 of capital. And if you don't have that much, then you just lower your risk tolerance. Maybe it's $50 a trade. If you have $1 million of capital to trade with, I would still start with a low risk tolerance because you have to learn. And I tell all my students, I want you to practice on paper first. Practice, 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 get good at it, then start trading when you've proven that you can be successful. And a big part of what I teach is how you leverage up, not leverage, but ramp up your risk tolerance amount over time. And again, you could have $50 million. Start small, learn, practice, prove that you're good at it, and then start trading. It's like riding a bike. Nobody hops on a bike for the first time and is good at it. It takes time. All right. So we always want to start with $0 of risk. I have a website called tradescores.com where we have a little simulator there, and you can enter in your practice trades. You can write them on paper. You can put them in an Excel spreadsheet, but you really want to increase your risk as you find success and decrease your risk as you have difficulty. Now, what helps you succeed? Remember, trading is simple, but it is not easy. It takes practice. You need to walk before you run. It takes time to learn. So it requires practice, focus, determination, and discipline. You do not want to be a gambler. You want to follow a strategy. Don't trade on gut feel. Don't trade on tips. I really encourage you, because the market is so competitive nowadays with computers, that you can't be successful at this without having really well-tested, sound strategies. So if you want to be a day trader, how do you do it? What's the process? My process was I developed and tested my own strategies. It took me about 8 years and a lot of expensive lessons before I was successful. The other option is to have me teach you and benefit from my 30 years of experience. I'll teach you my strategies. I'll show you what I do every day in active live. I'll answer your questions. I'll sort of guide you through the process. As long as you are willing to put in the work and you have the discipline and the determination to learn, I'm happy to help you. And I do that in a few ways. So the first thing that we offer is something called the Stockscores Education Center. It is an online resource where we have lessons, written and video lessons, that you can use to learn how to trade. Now, because we're running a little bit late, I'm not going to spend a whole lot more time on this. I would say that, just go back to my last video. I'll show you quickly. Let me just get my website up here. Hold on a sec. Just going to take me a moment and bring this here. Okay, here we go. Just bring this window into the screen. I'm going to log in. And we go to Trader Training, Education Center. Blow this up a little bit. And you can see there's all these different modules. So we can go to the foundation section. This is where we get all of our theory. So there is a written lesson on the 6 elements of chart patterns. There's also a video. I can click on this little video icon and it will start up a video. And then there is an assignment and a quiz, a little test. All right, so that's all the online part. Now that's the foundation, which is theory. We also have actual strategy sections. So these are your active trader section where you learn day trading and swing trading. And so there's all the strategies there. We have investor strategies for longer term traders. It's all there. And again, written lesson and a video. Now we have 2 courses that we offer. The first is called the Investor course. It gives you access to the theory, the foundation lessons that I just showed you. It gives you access to the investor strategy section. It gives you access to my market scan tool, for 6 months for free. And then after 6 months, you can keep your access for $300 per year. You get email support from me. I service all of my students personally. Don't have anyone doing that for me. And that's why I don't teach a lot of people. I teach about 100 people a year. And so you can get that one-on-one, more personalized service because of that. Then we have the Active Trader course, which includes everything in the investor course. So you get the foundation, get the investor strategies, but you also get the Active Trader strategies. You get access to the Active Trader market scans. You get email support from me, 6 months access to the tool. You also get my indicators for TradeStation. For those of you that want to use TradeStation, I will give you my action candle indicator, my trend line indicator, that indicator that showed rising bottoms, falling tops. All of that is included. And it makes you eligible for my Active Live service. Active Live is something that you have to pay $195 a month for, but that is where you can watch my analysis screen, you can listen to my commentary, I teach you something every day, and it really is, I believe, the best way to do this. I watch the Active Live screen like anyone else, and that's how I'm looking for opportunities. But you can only subscribe to Active Live if you have done the Active Trader course. I don't want to have hundreds and hundreds of people in Active Live, because then that's hundreds and hundreds of people chasing after the same opportunity, right? And so I don't want to have too many students and too many users so that I can still make money off of the trades just like you. And that's why I require that you take the Active Trader course. It's a higher, call it an initiation fee. It's also going to teach you what to do, but it also keeps my numbers down so that I don't have too many customers. I know that sounds weird from a business standpoint, but I'm a trader. I do this stuff that I'm teaching you. I'm doing it myself as well, and I don't want it to take away from the performance of my trades. So Active Live, again, you watch me create and monitor the market for day trades. It's real time. You're watching my screen as it happens. The live webinar that you log into every day starts about 5 minutes before the market opens with a quick commentary on what I think you should do at the open. And it goes until the end of the day. I do most of my talking in the first half an hour and the last half an hour. I come on a little bit through the day just to give you some updates, but generally speaking, you should know what to do through the middle of the day. But the first part of the day is very fast moving, and so I try to talk you through that the first part of the day. And then at the end of the day, I try to teach you something. So we'll talk at those times of the day. It's all automated. It's you're basically watching one of my computers running these processes. I'm doing the work so that you can focus on making trades. And again, it's only available to Stockscores Active Trader members. So this is how it looks. I just did a little video recording of it running. And you can see there's little yellow flashing lights. All that means is that there was a trade going through on that stock. These are all of the buy signals here in this bar. These are all the short selling signals here. This is the time of the entry signal, so that occurred at 102. RH is Restoration Hardware. The algorithm said buy 110 shares. The total position size was 12,800, but again, you divide that by 3 using margin. And these are swing trades over here. And this is just a chart of the S&P 500, because we look at that to determine whether it has the right pattern or not, or what the market factor is. So I'm also going to complement the normal course material with some live training, which starts April 28th. So on Tuesday, April 28th and Thursday, April 30th, I am going to spend an hour and a half each night walking you through the important theory, the concepts, how to read a chart pattern, how to do risk management, all of that stuff. So that's our first couple of classes. And those will be a live webinar. You can ask me questions as I go through it. It's much like tonight. Then on the following week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we are going to practice doing position trading. We will run market scans. We will look for opportunities, that sort of thing. And then the final piece for those who take the Active Trader course is you get 1 free month that you can use anytime. You don't have to use it in May. You can use it a year from now. It's up to you. But you get 1 free month of Active Live, so you can actually watch things happen in real time. And again, I do a fair bit of teaching in that as well. And then you're also eligible, if you've taken the Active Trader course, you're eligible to continue subscribing to Active Live. It's 195 Canadian a month. So the special offer that you can take advantage of up until April 23rd is if you purchase the investor course or the Active Trader course, you get the overview class and the investor market scanning. If you purchase the Active Trader course, you also get a free month of Active Live. The deadline for that is Thursday, April 23rd. The market is really awesome right now. So especially if you want to do the Active Trader, I wouldn't wait till April 23rd because you can start learning right away. And in fact, if anyone registers between now and April 23rd, I'll give you access to Active Live for the remainder of the month because it's such an awesome time right now, so you may as well take advantage of it. So that's a special offer. I like to do that twice a year, and so that's happening now. Here's the pricing. The investor course, $2,495 Canadian. The Active Trader course, $3,495 Canadian. It's important to recognize that Active Trader includes the investor course. So you get all of this included in this. If you took the investor course anytime in the past and you want to upgrade to Active Trader, you can do so. The upgrade fee is $1,250, and you can do that simply by logging into Stockscores and going to the Education Center, and you will see a link there for that. All right, so I'm going to launch a poll really quickly, and then I'll take your questions, and then we will just talk a little bit about the economics of trading. But let me launch this poll. So I don't like to bug people unless they want information about my different courses. I won't bug you. So I'm going to launch this. Now it says here on the poll, I forgot to remove this. I don't have the mentorship program running right now just because we're coming into the summer. I typically run the mentorship in the fall. So you can answer yes to that as well. But right now, all we're doing is investor and Active Trader, and you will be eligible for the mentorship in the fall if you want to do that then. But I don't teach it over the summer because I'd like to be outside, to be honest. So I'll leave this up for maybe another 20 seconds. And then we're going to talk economics, and then we'll take your questions. I'm going to have a glass of this fine Italian red wine that I poured, which I haven't even touched yet. Okay, so another, I don't know, 10 seconds. And all that happens, if you say yes to this, you're just going to get an email from me probably on the weekend with just a little bit more information about the courses that we offer. I don't like spamming people. I'm not going to send you a bunch of garbage. If you're watching this as a video and you can't respond right now, you can send me an email and I'll put you on the email list to get updates. Because I will be taking tonight's webinar, putting it up on YouTube later on. And so you can watch this webinar again if you felt like it went too fast. It'll all be up there. All right, so I'm going to close the poll now. And let's just talk quickly about, well, first I'll do this. If you want to register for the course, you just go to the Stockscores website. Dang it, I think I closed it. Hold on a second. So you go to stockscores.com and just go to Trader Training, learn how to trade. There are videos here on the different course options. There's a video on the investor course. There's a video on the Active Trader course, and you can do it all right here and buy it right there. So it's all online purchase. You will get instant access as soon as you purchase. It's done immediately. So that's how you can register for the course. If you have questions, you can email me. I'll put my email address up right here. There's my email address. That's my personal email. So if you have any questions, please email me there. Follow me on Twitter. Just search for Stockscores. Follow me on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Just do a YouTube search for Stockscores and you will find the channel. Now, let's talk a little bit about economics, because people always ask me, how much money can you make trading? Well, right now, more than normal. So there's a few different things we have to understand. We have to think about reward for risk, which we talked about earlier, the probability of success, which gives us the expected value. So if you have a strategy, and I showed you this once already, but I'm going to show you again. If you have a strategy that has a 70% chance of making an average of 2 RR profit and a 30% chance of losing 1 RR of loss, then over a large number of trades, let's do it over 100 trades, you would make 140 here, RR, and you would lose minus 30 RR, which means you net out 110 over 100 trades. So your average RR is about 1.1. And that's kind of what we strive for. We strive for our average with losses to be around 1. And then it's just a repeatable process. So if in a month you do 40 trades and your average RR per trade is 1.1, that means at the end of the month you've made 44 RR. If your risk tolerance was $100, that means you should be making around $4,400 of profit. That's sort of how I do my analysis. Now, in order to make 10 RR a week, which is essentially what this is, it's, I guess, 11. No, it's 10. No, 10, that doesn't matter. Let's say you're making 10 RR a week. That means you're only probably doing 2 trades a day, 2 to 3 trades a day. If you have more capital and you get more experience, you can be doing 10 trades a day. If you're new, you might be only doing 1 or 2 trades a day. So it's a process, okay? But we're always thinking in these terms. Now, my strategy, like I said, we're striving for an average profit after losses of around 1. In this market, it's higher than that because it's so volatile, so crazy, and it also takes less capital right now. But in a normal market, you know, if you can be doing 5 to 10 RR a week when you're starting out, I think that's a good goal. And once you get good at it, start making 20, 25 RR a week. That means 100 RR a month. Now you can really make a living at it. But it does not start making a living at it. You have to learn. You have to give yourself time to learn. You know, how long does it take for a lawyer to become a lawyer? They got to go to law school. They got to go to pre-law and all that stuff. And then they got to work as an articling student where they get paid next to nothing. I mean, realistically, it's 10 years before you're actually making a good living as a lawyer. Doctor, same thing. Hockey player takes you 10 years before you might be able, maybe 15 years before you can make the NHL. So everything takes time. Trading shouldn't take you 10 years, 8 years. You should be able to learn with my help in less than a year. And really, if you work at it and you listen to me and you're disciplined, you've got emotional control, I think anyone can learn this in 3 months. But don't come into this with the expectation that you are going to be a good trader in a week. I want you to be realistic, and that is not a realistic expectation. Even 3 months is pushing it a little bit. That I've had students do it, but you know, you have to really be disciplined to get there. So here's one example from today, and you can see that this one trade made 23 RR. So that's an entire week for some people. It was a red hot stock. And I had numerous people in my active live today that traded this. We always analyze our data. From that, we can calculate these average RRs and expected values. So when I throw these numbers out, they're not based on, you know, things that I pull out of the sky. It's based on data. And I've got over 50,000 long trades, over 50,000 short trades in this one spreadsheet, which goes back to July. But I have another one that goes back another 2 years, and it's pretty consistent. When you look at data, you learn a lot. And that's how we can start to pull out things. What's the difference between being able to do this and failing? It's very simple. One, you have to have knowledge. That's what I'll teach you. And the second thing is you have to practice. You're not going to be a good skier, not going to be a good cyclist, not going to be a good hockey player, not going to be a good golfer, not going to be fit. All of those things take time and repetition and practice. And I'm your coach. I will guide you through the process, but you got to do the work. And if you're willing to do that and you're fascinated with the world of trading, then I think this is a great place to be, because the income potential is awesome, but it's actually not that which I love so much about trading. It's the freedom, being able to do it anywhere, anytime you want. I work from my house. It's really is an awesome way to live. So I will take some questions. Once again, there is my email address. And first question, is it required to do every day? Well, that's the great thing about day trading is it is not. Because at night you are in cash. And so if you want to go to Hawaii for the weekend, you close out all your positions on Wednesday, you fly out Thursday, come home Sunday. You can do that. Next question. In the CODX example, RR was in increments of 13 cents. How is that determined? That is determined by the height of the action candle. That was the thing I was explaining at the top. So we take the close of the action candle. So if this is a candle, and not everyone is aware of what candles are, that's something I'll teach you. But so the close is here, the low is here. In the case of CODX, the difference between the two was 13 cents. And so then those RR lines are multiples of that. In normal markets, are there still enough trades to make? Oh, absolutely, yeah. We have, now is awesome, and the average is probably, I actually haven't calculated it, but I would guess that we can average RR2 right now, whereas normally it's 1, but 1 is still great. The examples I used when I showed you income potential, that was based on a normal market, not this market. Are students able to connect with each other on a forum? No. I used to do that, and I found that my students screwed each other up too much, so I decided to stop that. I would rather you communicate with me, and I will tell you the right answers. I had some people giving out some bad information to my students, and then I end up having to correct them, and it took more work. Next question. Do you have a version of my indicators, which I use for TradeStation, available for Thinkorswim? Unfortunately not. They're only available for TradeStation. But active live means that you don't need TradeStation if you don't want to, but they do not work with TC2000, Thinkorswim, some of those other platforms. So once you receive an alert in active live, do you have enough time to analyze the chart of the stock before placing an order? Sometimes they run fast, but in a typical day there is, well, I'll just tell you today, there were today, there were 125 action candles on the buy side today. Some of them ran up too fast for someone who's maybe learning to catch it in time. But there's still always a trade that takes 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I bought a stock today. It didn't go anywhere for like 2 hours. So there's always going to be examples or opportunities where you don't have to be fast. And if you can be fast, then you'll be able to take advantage of those as well. Next one. Can you explain the difference between a software-based broker and a web-based broker? So it's the platform that the broker offers. So most of the big banks, they will offer a web-based platform to do your order entry. Some also have software that you install on your computer to do your order entry. So for example, TD Waterhouse or TD Canada Trust in Canada, they have a web-based platform where you log into a website and do your trades. They also have a platform called Thinkorswim, which is something you install on your computer. And I think they even have one more. I don't trade with them, but they have one more as well. I use interactive brokers. I install software on my computer that do things, right? In the AB example, where exactly do you buy? Oh, geez, sorry, I don't remember that one. Don, maybe email me because I don't want to spend a bunch of time trying to figure out where the chart is. So, but I'm happy to answer you by email. How would you swing trade CODX if you have money in the stock tonight, considering volatility potential opening tomorrow? So CODX was, we traded off of the 13-minute chart. I'm actually going to jump to another program here. Just bear with me for a moment. And we're going to go to this screen right here. And we'll bring up CODX. And I'll just show you how I would treat it as a swing trade. So when we're swing trading, we look at the 13-minute chart typically. You can do the 13-minute as well. So CODX was a swing trade because it broke the downward trend line from a rising bottom. If you've watched any of my videos in the last 2 weeks, you'll know that I've talked about that a few times. And so our entry was there at 1063. It went out today right at the highs. And I don't like that it went straight up into the close. And so I think I mentioned to people in active live today, it's not terrible to take some money off the table, at least half, because often stocks that rally into the close like that will pull back the next day. But with that said, there was still no sell signal. So what I would look for a sell signal is just draw a line across these bottoms. That's your upward trend line. And if it closes below that upward trend line, I would take profits and maybe you can buy it back cheaper later. All right, I'm just going to try to answer a few more questions here. Does the software you install automatically trade for you? No, you have to still do the buy and sell orders. Is it wise to jump straight into day trading, or should you learn to swing trade first? I wouldn't do anything right away. You need to learn first, need to practice first. And certainly day trading is not intellectually more difficult. The rules are kind of all the same, whether you're long or short-term trading. Where it gets different is that you have to think faster when you're day trading, and that takes more practice. So if you aspire to be a day trader, just don't trade with real money right away. I ask you, I beg you, please don't trade with real money right away. Let me teach you first. Let me help you for a while. You'll know when you're ready. And so the day trading is not intellectually difficult, but it does require practice to be fast. If I were to start with the investor course, is it necessary to go through the free content first? Nope. Well, free content's pretty basic. What charting software and data source do you use for Canadian stocks? So you can get that with Interactive Brokers. Their platform has Canadian markets. There's also, I think, TradingView, although I don't think they have real time. I believe TC2000 has Canadian. TradeStation does not. Unfortunately, TradeStation does not have Canadian data. They've been telling me for 20 years that they're going to get it, and they still don't have it. So, when you sell, do you sell at a market or limit? I always do market orders. Scotia iTrade is something called Flight Desk, which is another software platform that would have Canadian data. I think TD has something similar. Desjardins has something similar. So most of the banks that have those software installations will have Canadian market data and charts. Do the patterns work the same on different time frames? 2-minute 13. Yep. We use a little bit different patterns when we day trade, but generally speaking, you can apply those patterns to any time frame. Do any of your students have issues with the technology side? I mean, some of my students aren't great with computers yet, so they might have some difficulty that way, but the software that we use is all pretty straightforward. The webinar software is pretty straightforward. TradeStation will frustrate the heck out of you the first 2 weeks that you use it. And I actually want you to be frustrated and struggle with it. I've produced videos that will guide you through a little bit, but you learn the best by struggling. That's the reality. So I'm there to answer your questions. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to leave you hanging, but I kind of make people go out and figure it out a little bit, and then I help them when they need it. Have you programmed your indicators for Canadian stocks on other platforms like Interactive Brokers? No, I have not, only on TradeStation, unfortunately. Do you find the majority of students are new each year? That's a great question, and yes, I do. And that, people always say, how many of your students are successful? Unless everyone sends me their broker statement, I really don't know. I mean, the best indication is that month after month, people keep renewing on my active live service, and year after year, people keep renewing in my longer term tools, the Stockscores tools. Can the bottom fishing strategy work for day trading? I don't do it for that. We use something kind of conceptually similar when we look for breaks of pullbacks. And I showed you that on that CODX example, but not necessarily. Do I trade in RRSPs and TFSAs? You're not supposed to day trade or actively trade in those registered accounts. Lots of people do. If you start making lots of money, then the government's going to not let you do it anymore, and then you have to start trading in a margin account. Do you need to know level 2 analysis to day trade? Absolutely not. Back 20 years ago, people did that. To me, it's an antiquated method. I don't do it at all. Too many games get played with level 2 nowadays. Is there a subscription cost for TradeStation? If you're outside of Canada, let's say you're in the US or the UK, you can open a brokerage account with TradeStation. I don't even know if the UK can, but certainly in the US. And then you get TradeStation for free. Unfortunately, we here in Canada have to subscribe to it. It's 99 US dollars a month plus the exchange fees, which are pretty low, maybe $10 a month. So, and again, I don't think you need it. I mean, lots of my students use it. I think it's awesome. I would encourage anyone to use it, but because we have Active Live, at least when you're starting out, you can do that initially. But it's like if you're running a business, let's say you open up a sandwich shop, you pay rent for your building, you pay staff, like you have overhead. And TradeStation and Active Live, your commissions that you pay on trades, that's just a cost of doing business. I mean, think of trading as a business. Are day traders taxed as income on capital gains made? Yes. If you are a pro trader, then you have to, like if that's your primary occupation, if that's what you do to make your living, then you don't get the capital gains exemption. You got to pay the full tax. I think I've got all the questions, and there's a lot of questions on my screen here. Oh, here's one that I missed. Does anyone else teach RR the same way you explained it? I don't read other people's books. So someone asked me the other day, what are your five favorite trading books? And I really don't read them. I have a whole bunch. I have a bookshelf full of them because I buy them when I go to shows and I read the first 3 pages and then I get bored and I put them down. So I don't know. Sorry, I can't tell you if other people teach that. It makes sense, and I'm sure others do. But can you be incorporated as a company when you trade to reduce tax in Canada? Yeah, absolutely. I would say if you are a pro trader, then it makes a lot of sense to incorporate trade in a business, because then you can write off expenses, your cap or your tax at the small business tax rate on the first $500,000. So the first $500,000, and I don't want anyone to quote me on this because I'm not an accountant, but I believe the tax rate on the first $500,000 is 12% corporate. And then you can dividend yourself out an income. Let's say you want to pay yourself 200 grand a year. You dividend that out and your marginal tax rate's a little lower than if you did it as income. Again, I'm giving you the broad strokes. Please go ask a qualified accountant to tell you all this stuff. I'm not a qualified accountant, but that's kind of what I do. Question, if I get Active Live, do you think I could pay enough in 2 weeks to pay for the course? I think you can. However, I don't want you to start trading in the first 2 weeks because I want you to learn first. So I know everyone wants to make money right away, day one, but I really think, think about it this way. If you're a mountain biker, I'm a mountain biker. I love mountain biking. You don't hop on a mountain bike and go ride down double black trails at Whistler day one, right? You got to learn. And trading's the same. Before you start trading with real capital, learn first. But I mean, I had a student last week that sent me an email to tell me that he made $50,000 that day. I had another student email me since the start of April, he's up 52%. So can you? Yes. But I want you to not focus on the money because that's where your emotions get aroused. It'll come in time. So let me teach you first, and then you can worry about making money. Do your tools work for all markets, including UK and US? So my tools will work on any market that we have data for, but I only track, in TradeStation, I only track the US markets. On Stockscores, we track all North American markets. We do not track the markets in Europe or in Asia. We don't have the data feeds for them. In theory, we could, but we don't yet have enough customers outside of North America, so it doesn't really justify the cost, but I'm getting more and more popular outside of North America, so maybe one day we will. Does IB include charting? Yep. Yeah, they actually have pretty good charts. So if you want real-time charts, real-time pricing, and you're with interactive brokers, you're going to get pretty good charts, certainly good enough to make your decisions off of. And as long as you're using Active Live as well. What is the average of your students? I don't have the data to tell you that. All I can tell you is that most of my students are new. Any advantage, disadvantage to being old? Well, I've got lots of students that are retired. It's one of the common reasons why people buy my course is they're retiring and they want to trade. So I'm going to be 50 this year. I'm not as young as I was when I started this, and I can still think fast enough to do this. It's just practice. You know, maybe one issue I sometimes see with older people is that they didn't grow up with computers, so they're maybe not computer literate. But again, that's something that you can learn. Age is just a number. If you want to learn it, just learn it. I'm not familiar with TradeStation. Is it a broker? It is a broker in the US, but if you are not in the US, then you can subscribe to TradeStation. So if you want, let's say you're in Canada and you want to use TradeStation, just do a Google search for TradeStation subscription. It's going to take you to a website where you can actually subscribe to it. Is the active service sign up done through the Stockscores website? Yes, it is, but you have to be a active trader member. But if you go to the website, go to trader training, upcoming events, and you can go down. I don't have May up here yet, but May's will be here, and you just register right there on the page. Is TradingView a suitable platform? I like TradingView's charts. They look pretty good. I don't use it myself, so I can't give you my experience, but we use TradingView charts on Stockscores actually. So if we go into Stockscores and pull up a chart and go to interactive chart, those are provided to us from TradingView. Now there is a higher level of TradingView charts where it's got real time, and we don't have real time on Stockscores. But if you want to get a sense of how it looks, you know, you can draw lines, you can draw risk reward lines. It's all there. So it's pretty cool. I mean, I picked it for Stockscores. I just don't use it myself because I use TradeStation. Can you option trade using your strategy? Yep, many of my students do. I don't personally, but many of my students do. Is Active Trader open every trading day? Yes, it is. You know, the odd time I'm traveling, and so I may not talk as much, but I was in Hawaii over spring break, and Active Live was running every day. I just didn't give you as much of my commentary because I was on holidays, but it still runs. And I don't travel a lot, by the way. Don't understand how the proprietary real-time indicator will work for us. If you want to run TradeStation, I'm going to give you the action candle indicator. You do not need to do that. You can just use Active Live. Some people, I find the people that are maybe engineers and computer geeks, people like me that like that kind of software, they want to use TradeStation. They love it. Most of my students don't. And if you do love it, and if you want to use it, if you are my active trader student, I will email you my action candle indicator so you can do it. And I've got videos. I'll show you here. You go to Trader Training Education Center and go down to the active trader section. There is a video here on TradeStation basics and active trading with TradeStation. I've got videos right there that teach you that stuff. Okay. Can you please recap what you would provide for members? Yep. Although you can watch the video too, but I'll show you quickly. Just got to go back here. So, one more time. The active trader, this is what it includes. Foundation lessons, access to the investor strategies, access to the active trader strategies, access to the market scans on Stockscores. I didn't really show you that. That was in Tuesday's webinar, but if you go to the market scan, we have these preset strategies here. These are for longer term trading. I can run this. Didn't find anything today because the kind of day it was, but there's all these filters here. So you get access to all that. And you get that for 6 months. After 6 months, you can renew for $300 per year. You get personal email support from me. When you have a question, you email me. You get access to my indicators for TradeStation if you choose to use TradeStation. And you are eligible for Active Live, which is where we do our algorithmic, all the work is done for you essentially. You just have to execute the trades and evaluate the trades, but the actual analysis work is done there. And then the special offer right now is you get that. If you purchase one of the courses before the 23rd of April, you only get Active Live if you do the Active Trader course. Okay, so there's the offer. And I think I'll leave it at that. I've talked long enough. This was recorded as a video, and so I will upload the video once it's been compiled. It should be up by tomorrow. And I have another webinar on Saturday. We'll go into a little bit more of a breakdown of what's in the different courses. And so if you want to know a little bit more about that, just go to the Stockscores website, upcoming events. You can register for the course or the webinar there, and I'll answer more questions about the course material and that sort of thing on Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern time. I know some people here are in Europe and Asia, so you'll have to figure out the time. I have no idea. But 9 a.m. Pacific time, we're on Saturday. All right. Have a good night, everyone, and I will hopefully see you on Saturday. Trade well.